I'm back. And this is Oscar. Say hi, everybody.
I already introduced.
Okay. Now, we're on page 14. There's two examples. The first one is this one that says simplify the expression. When you go to simplify the expression, the first thing you look for is there an exponent outside of a parenthesis? And there is. This one. So this power has to be given to all three of the items in the parenthesis. So the first one's not going to change. It's x to the second, y to the negative third, z to the fifth. Now this is going to be x to the negative second to the second, y to the first, because there's no power there, to the second, and z to the negative fourth to the second. Now, double powers have to be multiplied. So this becomes x to the negative fourth, y to the second, z to the negative eighth, and this is still x to the second, y to the negative third, z to the fifth. Now, when you look at this, you're like, what am I supposed to do with that? Because the variables aren't next to each other. But really, x to the second and x to the negative fourth are just two of the same base being multiplied, so you add the powers. So this becomes x to the 2 plus negative 4. For the y's, you have y to the negative 3 plus 2. And for the z's, you have z to the 5 plus negative 8. Now, when you add all the exponents, you end up with x to the negative second, y to the negative first, and z to the negative third. But you know you are not allowed to leave negative exponents in your final answer. So all the negative exponents have to move. Now right now they're all considered in the numerator, so they all have to move to the denominator. If you move everything to the denominator, it looks like this. You have nothing in the numerator, so you put a 1 there. And that is the first example on page 14, page 14. What happened?
That's my phone.
The second example on page 14 is x to the second y over 3y to the second times y to the second over x to the negative fourth. Okay, so there's no powers to distribute here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to combine the two fractions by putting the numerators together and the denominators together. That means in the numerator, the y powers will add. And in the denominator, those are different variables, so they'll just be written next to each other in alphabetical order. So you should have in your numerator x squared y to the third over 3x to the negative fourth y to the second. Now you see that there is a negative exponent. So the x to the negative fourth has to move up. So now what you have in your numerator is you have x squared, x to the fourth, y to the third, over 3y to the second. Now you're either going to appropriately add or subtract the powers based on the type of question. So here you're multiplying, so that's where you add the powers. Here you're dividing, so that's where you subtract the powers. So in your numerator you have x to the 6th, and y to the 1st. And in the denominator, the only thing left is the 3. And that's example 2. Now you guys take a second to do the you-dos, and I'm going to go over them. Are you ready? Page 15, you do number 1. Okay, so in this first you-do, there's no outside parentheses, so that makes our life a little bit easier. So we could just start by combining the a's and the b's and the c's by adding their exponents together. Now you also have a regular 5 and a negative 3 that are coefficients, and since this is a multiplication problem, you actually have to multiply them. So 5 times negative 3 is negative 15, and then I have a to the 3 plus negative 1, b to the negative 2 plus negative 5, and c to the 4 plus negative 3. And so now you have negative 15, a to the 2nd, b to the negative 7th, and c to the 1st. You're not allowed to leave a negative exponent in your final answer, so anything that has a negative exponent has to relocate. Negative 15 is not a negative exponent, but b to the negative 7th is, so it has to move down to the bottom. So now you've got negative 15, a to the 2nd, c, over b to the 7th, and that's you-do number 1. Now let's do you-do number 2. You-do number 2 says 2x to the 6th over 4 x to the 5th y to the negative 4th times 3x to the negative 2nd y to the 2nd over x to the negative 7th. Okay, so again, there's no parentheses with outside exponents to put in. So I'm going to take a look at this. I'm going to combine it to be one fraction first. And when you combine it to be one fraction, that means you multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. Multiplying straight across the top means with the coefficients, you have 2 times 3, which makes 6. But with the variables and exponents, you have to add the exponents. So for the x's, you have x to the 6 plus negative 2. And then the y's have nobody, so it's just y to the 2nd. In your denominator, you have 4 x to the 5th plus negative 7, because of that one, and then y to the negative 4th. So now you have 6x to the 4th, y to the 2nd, over 4x to the negative 2nd, y to the negative 4th. Okay, now I see that there's negative exponents. That means I have to relocate. So the x to the negative 2nd is moving up. The y to the negative 4th is moving up. Nothing else is moving. So in your numerator, you have 6 x to the 4th that was there before, x to the 2nd that just moved up. y to the second that was there before, y to the fourth that just moved up. In the denominator, you have a 4. Now, when you go to appropriately add or subtract the exponents, you see that these are multiplication problems, so the exponents get added. So now you have 6x to the 6th, y to the 6th over 4. And we'd like to be done, but we're not, because 6/4 is coefficients, and coefficients can reduce like they did when you were young. 6 over 4, they're both divisible by 2. So your final answer is 3 x to the 6th, y to the 6th over 2. That is all the questions for packet number 2. You guys should now be able to do all the work that's attached for packet number 2. When we get on to packet number 3, I will send you the packet as well as a video. If you guys have questions, please post them on Google Classroom, and that way I can either make a video to answer them or Google you a message. Thanks. Have fun. Bye.